Good morning. It's Thursday, March, 8th or the 9th, 2023. I haven't posted anything on my YouTube page for, I think it's been close to a month. I'm not making excuses. I've just been busy. It's been terribly muddy here, cold, colder than a mischief. My grandma used to say. I have no idea how cold the mischief is, but apparently it's pretty cold. I've always preferred colder than a well digger's butt, or maybe even colder than a witch's teat. I don't know how cold either one of those are, but I'm guessing they're pretty cold anyway. It's probably not politically correct to refer to things like well diggers and witches, but I'll try to avoid it next time. In the meantime, it's too late to take it back. I haven't posted anything. The biggest reason for that is I mentioned at one time that we're out here in the middle of nowhere. The internet service is terrible here when it's working. So the only time I can upload something is when we're in Hays, Kansas with the kids doing something on their ranch. So we're going next week. We're going to pull a couple of bulls to Hays, and we're going to pull home a donor cow that we've got over by Salina in Carlton, Kansas at Blue Stem Embryo Transfer. But anyway, the internet out here is horrible. Grandpa Joe has promised us that we're going to get some decent internet, and in fact, Casey Electric has promised me that within a year they're going to pull a fiber optic line to the ranch, which they're within about 2 miles now. Our telephone line is underground, and it's got to be probably the original line that was pulled in back when they invented telephones. I don't know how long ago that was, but just to show you how pitiful it is, it runs down the south side of the section of grass I've got across the road, right down the fence line. And when I put an electric charger on that fence, the ground rod must be fairly close to the power line, because all summer long we get to listen to click, click, click on the telephone, and apparently that's the electric fence discharging through the ground line. But anyway, that doesn't matter, but it's horrible. Reminds me of the time my dad talked about when he was a little kid. He remembers the day when Casey Electric drove down the road throwing out power poles, and they threw out a power pole in front of the ranch, and he realized that apparently they were in a new age, a new era. Prior to that, they had a wind charger, a windmill. The electricity was generated by the wind through a windmill, and it was stored glass batteries in the basement of their house. And you can still find those glass batteries from time to time at farm sales. They looked kind of like a 2 or 3 gallon aquarium. But anyway, that's not important. My dad mentioned one time, and I've mentioned before, my granddad was meaner than hell. Him and my dad didn't get along. But my dad, when he was a little kid, he's always been extremely intelligent, but as a little kid, he decided he was going to make an electric magnet. And he took I'm guessing it was probably a metal fence post or something metal fairly big, and wrapped it up with wire, and he had it hanging out in the barn. And he was still on the old wind-charged 12-volt glass battery system. And he remembers, he told me, when he plugged in his electromagnet, it dumped all the electricity. So there was no electricity. The batteries were dead. Apparently, Grandma and Grandpa had gone off somewhere. And my dad talks about just praying for the next 2 hours that the wind would come up and recharge those batteries. He would have caught hell if Grandpa would have come home and there was no electricity. Luckily, the wind came up and everything was fine. But I'm going to go ahead and get something posted real quick, just so you don't forget me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a story. It's another story out of my book of short stories. It's called Old Thunder Mountain. So I'll get this read, I'll get this edited. One other thing before I go, for the last month, I've also been going back through some of the videos that I've already done, and I'm trying to tidy them up a little bit. I did figure out how to put some background music in and some text, so I'm trying to polish up and shorten some of those videos. So bear with me. If I don't just wander off and forget this, I'll keep going. But anyway, thank you for your time. Enjoy the story, and I'll talk to you later. That's all for now. Old Thunder Mountain. Last week I was reminded by the fellas at the coffee shop that I probably don't deserve my wife. She and I are both fairly well known around here. She is well liked, me not so much. Later that day I was wondering if any husband truly deserves his blushing bride. As I pondered my husbandly talents, my mind wandered back to the days of my youth. I ran away from home at the ripe old age of 16. I was up in the slack at the Days of 47 rodeo in Salt Lake. Mom said I couldn't go. I went. When I got back, I found work at a local ranch, mucking stalls and doing chores. I was compensated with a room in the bunkhouse. No pay, no food, just a room, and all the practice bulls I could get on. I went to high school and worked when I could. One of my chores was to keep the horses rode. Old Thunder Mountain was one of those horses. Thunder Mountain was a draft horse Appaloosa cross. He was big, probably 16 hands and fat as a tick. His feet were as big as pie pans. He was cranky, hard to catch, and fought the bit. His gait was rough, and the power steering went out years ago, and those were his good qualities. But when it came to pulling something, Thunder Mountain had the heart of a giant. You could throw a rope off of him too. So he was handy as hell if a bull got out and needed to be pulled out of the neighbor's cows. At that time, I was usually broke and hungry and looking for a way to earn $1. That's where Thunder Mountain comes into the story. There was a big gully on the ranch about a mile from the barn that somebody had dumped railroad ties into many years before. Each evening after school, I would ride Thunder Mountain down into the gully. He would stand by and watch as I dug a couple of railroad ties out of the frozen ground. Then we would pull them home. On Saturdays, we could make 2 and sometimes 3 trips. It was cold and miserable work. I found a local landscaping contractor that would pay me $5 apiece for the ties. That's how I supported myself that winter. I didn't starve to death, but I did graduate from high school and eventually college. I got married, raised a family, and grew old. Most of the husbands I know are a lot like old Thunder Mountain. Cranky, tired, soggy, and hard to catch. But we get up every day, trudge off to our own personal gullies, and drag home a few railroad ties, hoping to sell them for $1 or $2. Just to get up and do it all again tomorrow. So, do we deserve our wives? Yeah, I think we do. So, that's the story of Old Thunder Mountain. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoy the time that I spend with you, so just keep watching and I'll keep working on it. Talk to you soon.